NBA drama, man. It really is the gift that keeps on giving. What do we do? What do we do to deserve this as basketball fans that always have something to talk about no matter what else is going on? Of course, we could talk about actual basketball, but in case you've been living under a rock, you should know by now that the NBA released their top 75 players of all time list last week to celebrate the 75th anniversary, and there was a lot of controversy and debate surrounding some of the bigger snubs like Dwight Howard, who missed out on the list, Nikola Jokic, who missed out on the list, older guys like Alex English, who missed out on the list, Luka Doncic, Tony Parker, and one of the bigger snubs and one of the people who was talked about the most, Kyrie Irving. You even have NBA players like Andre Iguodala coming out and saying Kyrie Irving, 75 players of all time. No, he's a top 20 player of all time. Huh? I'm jumping the gun a little bit. I'll get to that here in a second. But once it became clear that Kyrie was not included on the list, most people just moved on with their lives, because I think if you were to survey most NBA fans, they would probably agree Kyrie Irving is probably not a top 75 player of all time. But then yesterday, on Sunday, some internet super sleuths discovered that the Brooklyn Nets website had a placeholder for a tribute video to celebrate Kyrie Irving being added to the top 75 players of all time list. The video was taken down quickly. I didn't get any clips from it, but I did see it. It was basically some highlight reel of Kyrie Irving, obviously. But what was the most interesting to me? Because I thought this was a big nothing story, and I'll explain why in a second. But the reason this was interesting to me, because there was an interview at the end of the clip where Kyrie was talking about how much it meant to be included on this list.
Being right in the middle of this now, and that will come after me, to be etched with those names, knowing that I was once a fan and now I became part of it. It's like looking back on it, I'm honored.
That's interesting. This, of course, had the conspiracy theorists running wild, because to them, you know what, hold on a second. To them, this means that Adam Silver and the NBA left Kyrie Irving off the top 75 list intentionally because of his anti-vax views. Of course, this was something that was tweeted about on Twitter and everybody ran with it. And I'm not gonna lie, right? Like, I don't think Kyrie Irving's the top 75 player of all time, but I did think it was weird. They had this video. In the video, Kyrie's talking about how important it was to be included on this list. I found that weird because it seems like none of the other players who were added to the list had any idea that they were going to be included. I'm thinking back to like Reggie Miller, who was surprised on TNT. They had a whole nice little thing for Reggie Miller.
You guys would be teammates on this night, huh? You made it. Hey! 75 greatest players of all time.
Greatest ever!
Reggie Miller, congratulations.
And it genuinely seemed like Reggie Miller did not expect to be included on this list. So I thought it was weird that the Brooklyn Nets got Kyrie Irving to sit down and do an interview about making the top 75 list, even though Kyrie was at best a bubble player for the top 75. And that just seemed cruel to me. That just seemed cruel to me, to have Kyrie sit down and do record a video about him making the list. It'd be like going to a job interview, and before getting the job, the interviewer is like, okay, I want you to talk about how great this company is and how much you love working for it. And then they call you back the next day and say that your ass didn't get the job. So I love me a good conspiracy theory. I was intrigued. But upon further inspection, the theory just completely collapsed in on itself. One, some more internet super sleuthing discovered that the clip where Kyrie Irving was talking about being included on this list was from an interview taken 2 years ago. So it was really just some clever editing from the Brooklyn Nets media team. And as someone who's worked in sports media before, I can tell you, having placeholder articles like this on your website is really not that new of a thing or anything that crazy at all. Anytime you're expecting a big announcement or anytime there's a big game, sort of have the skeleton of an article in place. That way you can publish it very, very quickly. So your website hits the algorithm, and Google has your website towards the top of the list when people search things like Kyrie Irving top 75 player of all time. The quicker the Nets publish their tribute video, the quicker people are directed to their website. That's not that big of a deal to me. That happens literally all of the time. In fact, I'm sure you could probably go on the Orlando Magic website. I'm sure they have something for Dwight Howard somewhere hidden in their archives. Another reason why this theory collapsed in on itself for me was Kyrie Irving just is not a top 75 player, guys. He just isn't. He really never had an argument to begin with. I don't understand how people can be upset that Damian Lillard made the list, or Anthony Davis made the list, or Carmelo Anthony made the list, which people are upset about, and then expect Kyrie Irving to be included. Like, Kyrie would easily have the worst resume out of anybody on this list if he were added on. You have to compare him to Dwight Howard, because Dwight Howard seems to be the biggest omission, right? He's the biggest snub on the top 75 list. So anytime you're talking about a guy who deserved to be on, you pretty much have to compare him to Dwight Howard, who also didn't make the list. Dwight Howard, 8-time All-NBA player. Kyrie Irving, only a 3-time All-NBA player, 2 third teams, 1 second team. Dwight Howard, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Dwight Howard was the best player on a team that made the NBA Finals, and there were even points early on in Dwight Howard's career where people legitimately argued as to whether or not he was the best player in the NBA. Granted, this was before LeBron James had, his magical run in the postseason, and from that point onwards, obviously, LeBron was undoubtedly the best player in basketball. But still, Kyrie never even came close to being included in that argument. And going back to what Andre Iguodala tweeted, Kyrie Irving, a top 20 player of all time. Dude, you can make a better argument for Kyrie Irving not being a top 20 player in today's NBA than you can for Kyrie Irving being a top 20 player of all time. That is a fucking unbelievably ridiculous argument. And I do think Kyrie Irving is easily a top 20 player in today's NBA. I think he's top 12, top 15, but that's just not good enough. Would you rather have Kyrie Irving or prime Nikola Jokic on your team, who just... Jokic wasn't included on this list either. He just won the MVP. I'm taking Jokic over Kyrie. If I had to choose one to lead my team in their primes, I'm taking Jokic. Of course, it's crazy that all of this happened yesterday because yesterday was also the Brooklyn Nets home opener, and there were some protests outside the Barclays Center. People who were supporting Kyrie Irving, stand for Kyrie Irving, let Kyrie Irving play. I just find it funny because all these people who support Kyrie Irving currently for his anti-vaccine ramblings, if you were to show them any of Kyrie's stances regarding racial inequality in America, they would turn on his ass in a second. Like, they would immediately turn on him. But that's a different conversation for a different day. I don't know. I wanted to talk about this because I did find it interesting, right? Because you find something like that on a website, and it does sort of get the conspiracy side of you going. But ultimately, I think this is pretty much a nothing story, man. If the NBA wanted to exclude Kyrie Irving from the list, they wouldn't have had to have just removed him from it. They would just not include him. He's not like some super locked in top 75 player of all time. I think most people were in agreement going into this process that he was not a top 75 player of all time. And as many people have pointed out, if they did exclude Kyrie Irving because of his vaccination stance, then they have some explaining to do regarding some of the other guys who made this list who have done far worse things. If you guys are not subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so. We stream NBA content all of the time. You don't want to miss it. And I've watched a fucking unruly amount of basketball. So every Tuesday this season, I'm going to start recording a video sort of giving my takeaways from the past week and the season up until now. I'm going to work on that video tomorrow. I want to talk about Davion Mitchell. Holy shit, that guy is incredible. Let me know what you guys think about this Kyrie Irving drama, okay? The drama that's not really drama, the saga that never was, but I just thought it was hilariously interesting. I love all these conspiracy theory stuff, and the idea that Adam Silver yeeted Kyrie Irving from the top 75 list because of his vaccination stance is hilarious to me, even if I think it has no grounding in reality. Bye-bye!